Following a heartbreaking and devastating end to the 2024 season, the Detroit Red Wings missed the playoffs for an 8th straight year. As free agency approaches, there remains a ton of unanswered questions about the team, including the likes of free agency, trades, and the NHL Draft. I don't claim to be a GM, I'm just a fan with a dream. And today, I try to answer those questions in today's video, the 2024 offseason if I was Steve Yzerman. Now, I guess I could have also titled this if I was GM of the Red Wings, but whatever. So today, I'm going to be stepping into the shoes of Steve Yzerman and going through the NHL Draft, free agency, the RFAs, the UFAs, and trades I'd like to make, as well as buyout options, and a few other things for the Detroit Red Wings for the 2024-25 offseason. Super quickly, before we begin, this is all for fun, and do my best to keep things absolutely as realistic as possible. However, that being said, as a Wings fan, it's really hard not to be biased towards the players on the team and in the organization. If you agree or disagree with anything I have to say here today, please leave a comment down below so we can start a discussion and see how we can work that out for a future video. One more quick side note, the salary cap for this video is set to $88 million, and without further ado, let's begin. Starting out, we have the current Detroit Red Wings RFAs, Joe Veleno, Moritz Seider, and Lucas Raymond. Now, I have my own projections and thoughts on each player, but I'm not just using my thoughts. I've compiled lists from different websites on the internet to help me out with the projections of these contracts. I'm combining everything together, doing the average, and this is what I've come up with for each player. Joe Veleno is the easiest of the three. He's a bottom six forward who will play on the PK and pot 25 to 35 points a season. In the end, I don't see him signing some massive deal. I have him at 3 years at $2 million AAV. Now, as for Moritz Seider and Lucas Raymond, I think it's important to lock them up long term. They are the cornerstones of the future of the Detroit Red Wings, and it's important to pay them as such. Now, I have seen some projections having them sign a shorter term deal for less money, have a bridge deal in there so they make more money long term. I think it's important to pay them now. So for Moritz Seider, I have him signing an 8-year, $8.5 million AAV contract. And as for Lucas Raymond, we're going to do the exact same thing and give him an 8-year, $8.5 million deal. Now, it's important for me to say that I'm saying they both get 8.5, but you could take away a couple $100,000 from Raymond and give it to Seider or vice versa here. $17 million total for the two players. The Hockey News has Lucas Raymond as low as $7.9 million, and the Hockey Writers have him at $8.125. I've seen Seider go as high as 9.2 and Raymond as high as 9. I figure that somewhere in the middle is probably the best. You know, you can take away a couple $100,000 from each one and put them on the other player. I don't think it matters. $17 million for both. So we've already spent $19 million on 3 contracts. Let's move on to the NHL Draft. The Red Wings hold pick number 15 in the 2024 NHL Draft, and there's 2 different scenarios at play here. Either we use the draft pick at number 15, or we trade it for an impact player. Those players being Berkeley Catton and Michael Branson Nygaard. I don't know if I got either of those names perfect, but I'm sorry if I didn't. Now, realistically speaking, I think either one of these players would be fantastic pieces for the future of the Detroit Red Wings. And also, a special shout out to Liam Greentree of my hometown, Windsor Spitfires. I hope he goes really high as well. But option number 2 here is to trade the pick for an impact player, and I have a list of 4 different players and teams that could be interested. Rasmus Andersson of the Calgary Flames, Martin Necas of the Carolina Hurricanes, Nikolai Ehlers of the Winnipeg Jets, and Jacob Chychrun of the Ottawa Senators. While all 4 of these pieces would be absolutely huge for the Detroit Red Wings, there's only 2 I'm going to be attempting to making trades for here today. Rasmus Andersson and Martin Necas. I think they're the 2 that will cost the most in terms of value and assets. And if these trades don't happen, you could always circle back to Chychrun and Ehlers and try and get one of them instead. So we're going after Rasmus Andersson and Martin Necas right here, right now. Now, starting off with Martin Necas, it's all but a foregone conclusion that he is not with the Carolina Hurricanes next year. Necas had 53 points in 77 games this past season, and added an additional 9 points in 11 playoff games this year as well. He's a 6'2" forward that can play both winger or center, and is no doubt going to be a hot commodity in the offseason. I'll look at one of the trades I've come up with for Martin Necas to go to the Detroit Red Wings. We have Jonathan Berggren, Olli Maatta, and a 2024 second-round pick going the other way. Let me be super clear, I do not think that Jonathan Berggren should be traded. I think he's going to be a big piece for the future, but you're never going to get a trade done unless you're uncomfortable making that trade. Shout out to the Wing Wheel podcast for that. Berggren is a 23-year-old forward out of Sweden who in 12 games has put up 6 points this previous year. However, in the AHL, he put up over a point per game through 53 games. He is an RFA and he's due a new contract, but I don't expect him to get a ton. And reports came out earlier this year that he did not want to sign with the Detroit Red Wings and rejected a contract extension. I could see Berggren getting maybe a 2-year, $2 million deal and help replace that offense being lost from Martin Necas, while saving them an absolute ton in the cap to help out with, well, all of their expiring UFAs. I personally love Jonathan Berggren, and I really want to see him succeed at the NHL level. It may not be with the Detroit Red Wings, but he does have a very bright future, and I think he's going to put up a ton of points in the NHL level. As for the rest of the trade, Olli Maatta helps with the cap situation in Detroit and replenishes some of the defense lost this year in Carolina. And the second round pick is just a sweetener. I would add a first, however, the first round pick I have going elsewhere. Unless the next trade works better with Berggren instead of a first, I gotta get creative here. Side note, if you want to add a couple more picks or prospects to that trade on Detroit's end and send that to Carolina, I could totally see it happening. That's probably the bare minimum that's going to be required to take Martin Necas away from Carolina. So we're sending Berggren to Carolina. However, I do want to point out, it was reported earlier this year when there was trade talks of Rasmus Andersson that Jonathan Berggren was on their radar. There's a look at one of the trades I came up with to try and get Rasmus Andersson out of Calgary. They get Jonathan Berggren, a 2024 second, a 2025 third, and coming back with Rasmus Andersson would also be a 2024 fourth round pick. Calgary's in a weird situation where they're selling off a lot of their players. We don't know if Markstrom's going to be back or who else may be moved. And Pagnotta did report earlier in the year that Rasmus Andersson could be available. Andersson is a 27-year-old right-handed defenseman who's good for 40 to 50 points every single year, while eating a ton of minutes on the ice, which is something that Detroit needs to help take the pressure off Moritz Seider. He blocks shots, he's willing to throw the body, and over the last 2 seasons, he's played an average of 24 minutes a night. On top of that, he has a very team-friendly deal, only making $4.55 million for the next 2 seasons. If he's available, Detroit has to go after him. Now, hypothetically, and I'm just throwing this out there, let's say we do end up trading Jonathan Berggren to the Carolina Hurricanes, we get Martin Necas, and then we go after Rasmus Andersson. Well, here's a look at what a trade could look like without Jonathan Berggren being a part of the trade. We have a 2024 first, which is pick 15 overall, William Wallinder, and a 2025 fourth round pick. Wallinder is a prospect who projects to play at the NHL level. They get a first and a fourth to help out as well. That 15th overall pick could be huge for the Flames in the future. Now, if you can't pry Necas out of Carolina, well, maybe you send that deal over to Winnipeg and see if they accept it for Nikolai Ehlers. And if you can't get Rasmus Andersson, maybe you go after Jacob Chychrun instead. With that being said, we are continuing this video as if we had made those trades for Andersson and Necas. We're going all in here no matter what. The first round pick is gone. Jonathan Berggren is gone. One of them going to Calgary, one of them going to Carolina. No matter what, Rasmus Andersson and Martin Necas coming back, throwing in picks and prospects and whatever else to get these deals done. Maybe Carolina wants the first instead of Berggren so they can flip it to get somebody else. There's a lot of different options here. I think the first round pick has a ton of value, and I think Jonathan Berggren does have a ton of value as well. So there we have it. 2 trades have been made. A first round pick going, a fourth round pick going, Wallinder going, Berggren going. We have Olli Maatta going. We're just going to combine all of these things. Let's say that these trades did happen, and Martin Necas is being added to the forward group, and Rasmus Andersson added to the defensive group, which means that we no longer have space for some of our UFAs. Starting with Patrick Kane, the dynamic forward, not expected to be back in Detroit, and they're going to have to replace that offense somehow. Martin Necas, welcome aboard. Shane Gostisbehere, I would love to have back in Detroit, but with the addition of Rasmus Andersson, he priced himself out. He is gone as well. Daniel Sprong likely pricing himself out of Detroit as well. And it looks like a lot of the offense that Detroit had last year won't be coming back. If you can get David Perron on a very cheap deal, bring him back, and I would love to see Christian Fischer back next year as well, maybe at a $1.1 million deal max. James Reimer can be let go, and then you can sign some players like Austin Czarnik and Zach Aston Reese to play in the AHL and get called up in case of injury. With Kane, Ghost, and Sprong all gone this year, you got to replace that offense. Hopefully you have Martin Necas come in, replace the offense brought in by Kane. You need Lucas Raymond step up, Dylan Larkin, Alex DeBrincat, but you also have some young players you can bring into the fold as well, and that's what I think Detroit needs to do this year, and that's what we're doing. I fully expect Carter Mazur, Nate Danielson, and Marco Casper to all play games next year, with at least 1, if not 2, making the opening night roster. I think they're all going to be competing for the same spot at camp, and one of them is going to have to push through, because no matter what, the way I've built this roster, one of them has to be on the team. With that being said, if someone can prove themselves and you can add an additional one, that would be huge. Mazur plays more of a sandpaper game, and if you don't think he is ready for the NHL, I would suggest signing someone like Cal Clutterbuck, someone who's not going to make a lot of money, but throw a ton of hits and wear down the opposing players. Matt Martin also fits in that category. Someone near league minimum, maybe not exactly league minimum, up to like 1.1 million, but someone you can add on the fourth line to throw some hits until Mazur is ready. That leaves Danielson and Kasper, and we do have a slot on the third line right now open for one of those players to make it. Because of his age and he's played more professional hockey, I'm putting Marco Kasper on line number 3, with Nate Danielson still competing for a spot. As for the rest of free agency, I just don't see a lot getting done. Injury insurance is already there with Zarnik and Zach Aston-Reese, and then you have Danielson if he doesn't make the NHL roster. Not to mention Elmer Soderblom and a couple other players who could make it. On defense, if you need someone to get called up, we have Johansson and William Wallander if he doesn't get traded. I do have him getting traded here. Axel Sandin-Pellikka not ready to come over to the NHL yet and will be playing in Europe one more season. Maybe Brogan Rafferty gets a couple playing minutes. If somebody gets injured, you gotta hope that we have a good year and not many long-term injured reserve players. It's gonna happen. It always does. Again, the salary cap for this year, I set at $88 million. It's projected to be right around there, maybe a little bit less. In terms of coaching staff and whatnot, I don't change anything. I'm just gonna leave it the way it is for one more season. We'll see how this season begins and how it goes along. If we need to make a change, we do. I don't see Detroit using any of their bio options this year, but I do see them moving Justin Holl, maybe with a sweetener, to get him away from the team. Just a terrible contract that was signed, and we need to clear up that cap space. So Justin Holl and maybe like a third-round pick, maybe somebody's willing to do that. Not a third, maybe a second or a prospect, but you got to get rid of him. Here's a look at what a bio of Justin Holl will look like this year. You save 1.1, save 1.1, then lose 1.1 and 1.1. Now, after all the trades, the signings, and whatever else, here's a look at what I have for the Detroit Red Wings heading in to 2024-25 season. On line 1, we have Alex DeBrincat with Dylan Larkin and Lucas Raymond. Line 2 is Robbie Fabry with JT Compher and Martin Necas. Line number 3 with Michael Rasmussen, Andrew Kopp, and Marco Kasper. And line number 4, we have Cal Clutterbuck with Joe Veleno and Christian Fischer. Clutterbuck is there in case you don't think that Carter Mazur is ready. That could also be Matt Martin, but I think you need some grit on that fourth line. Now, if you don't have Clutterbuck there or Martin, and you say have maybe Carter Mazur there instead, that saves you a couple $100,000. In total, this forward group is taking up $55,186,000. Now let's take a look at the defense heading into the new season. We have Jake Wallman with Moritz Seider, Simon Edvinsson with Rasmus Anderson, and Ben Sherratt with Jeff Petrie. A lot of people want Petrie gone. It's going to be hard to do. He does have a no-move clause, and also, he does make $2.3 million, but you can't eat any of that contract, and I don't want to buy it out, so $2.3 million for a third-line right-handed defenseman for one season. It is what it is. The defense in total making $24.437 million. And on to the goaltending. We have Ville Husso and Alex Lyon returning for the Detroit Red Wings. This is a big concern. Not totally sure what we could do. Ville Husso obviously not going to get traded. No one's going to take that contract. And Alex Lyon, if he can play like he did last year, gives us a chance to win a lot of hockey games. We need both of them to be healthy and both of them to be playing well if we want to make the playoffs. They make a total of $5.65 million. If you add all the forwards, the defense, and the goalies together, we have a total cap hit of 87.944 AAV. Now, that is including a buyout of Justin Holl. Without the buyout of Justin Holl, we are well under the cap, but I just wanted to throw that out there. That is with a buyout of Justin Holl. We're still able to be under the $88 million cap. With the cap expected to go up over the next few years, a lot of these deals look better and better, in my opinion. Signing players like one-year deals like, say, Cal Clutterbuck, or letting Robbie Fabry walk after this season, probably pretty good ideas, so you're going to need that cap space, but then you can bring up more young players like Nate Danielson, Carter Mazur. Axel Sandin-Pellikka is going to be ready to go soon. And do I expect this team to make the playoffs? Looking at it on paper, it looks like a good team. It does. Is it playoff ready? Well, that remains to be seen. I think with the big additions of Martin Necas and Rasmus Anderson, this team could push for a playoff spot, likely a wild card spot. Hopefully they can get one more point, unlike last year. But if you can have big step-ups from Lucas Raymond, Dylan Larkin, Moritz Seider, Jake Wallman, and get decent goaltending, this is a playoff team. Is this the direction I expect Steve Yzerman to take? Probably not. But that was the entire point of this experiment. Have some fun and build out a Detroit Red Wings roster under the cap, making some maybe unrealistic moves, but maybe some moves that make me uncomfortable as well. It was a lot of fun doing this, and in the end, I think I accomplished my goal. Let me know down below what you think of all of the moves I've made, what you think the Detroit Red Wings are going to be doing this offseason, and anything else Detroit Red Wings related. If you want to fight me because I said I wanted to trade for Rasmus Anderson and you are a Flames fan, go ahead and leave a comment. Let's talk about it. Maybe I can convince you to let us pry him out of your hands. Same goes for Martin Necas. At the end of the day, this was an absolute ton of fun, and I would love to do more stuff like this in the future. So if you want to see that, make sure you leave a like on the video and subscribe. Anyways, y'all, I'm out of here. Thanks for watching. stay frosty.